Vince, Joe, Ron, how's it going? So, we have, I guess we don't need that anymore. We have made progress. Um, Everything is wired, uh, ready to test. I think I still need to configure the serial uh, uh, touchscreen, it being serial and um, not whatever the other interface is. Um, are the LEDs, the LCDs, they're not SPI based. What are they then? I'm not sure. Anyway, need to configure that. That requires two serial interfaces, one being the USB, one being this over here. Um, Need to configure dual Z and need to configure software end stops, I think. Let's see, what do I need to do for screen sharing? Screen sharing. Share screen, blah, 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 blah. Application window. That looks right. I have done much of the configuration already. We have on this, let's see, I can switch from screen to, no, remove from, how does one do this? Ron, I have not practiced. There we go. So what we have on here is 4 TMC 2130s in blue with the blue fins. These are version 3, and this one is a 2130 version 2 with the black fin. That's going to be my extruder. Picked extruder for that only because I have one of those, and I certainly didn't want to use one of the a version 3 and a version 2 for the dual Z, and I didn't want to figured I might as well have all the axes, the motion axes be the same. Anyway, the other thing that's interesting about this board is it includes these headers here, the black ones. I don't know if we can get a closer view of this. Let's see. Below each of the steppers, apparently, documentation suggests that those are secondary stepper headers. So I should be able to do dual Z without needing either a Y splitter, which is what Chris Riley did with a Y splitter on the SKR board, or a secondary stepper. I'm going the secondary stepper route because I'm doing this all SPI, and I can do software current control, so everything should be synced up. It should be fine. And I didn't want to have to go back through and rearrange the connectors on the second Z, which of course you can't. I would need to put a DuPont connector on there, which is a pain in the ass, and I don't have any DuPont connectors, and I would rather the things be consistent. All right, what else is going on here? So we are, I guess I should demonstrate where I'm at here first. All right, so this header here in the center of the board is for switching from 24 volt, 12 or 24 volt input to 5 volt input, 5 volt being for when you're doing a firmware build and not powering the board. I found out the hard way that there's a specific sequence of operation, a startup sequence for this thing, whereby if you have the USB connected when you power the thing on at 24 volt, the steppers will not initialize correctly. This we can see, no, I would need to switch screens. Anyway, just take my word for it. They don't initialize correctly if you do that. So you have to actually power the thing on at 24 volt and then connect the USB if you want to get the expected results. So let us watch things move and not blow up. All right, so I have gotten into the habit of waiting for the thing to initialize a little bit longer than you would for the Arduino, the 8-bit boards, at which point we plug in our USB and connect. And I'm going to do this through Planterface just because we're going to move X. Yay, X moves. We're going to move Y. Why is Y not moving? There we go. And we're not going to move Z right now because I've already tested this and found that only Z1 is moving. So we need to figure out why that is. Actually, I'm going to move Z just a little bit. I will move Z by 1 millimeter. Right. So we see that it's moving Z improperly. Nothing burned up. Oh, I should point out that the initial board that I got, the heat bed actually shorted out. It had a trace that was messed up on it. So that's something you should always check before you go and connect things, because I went through 2 MOSFETs thinking something was horribly wrong where the MOSFET heated up and fried things. Oh, and on an earlier stream, I think it was Jim's test stream the other day, Never Let the Machines Win, had a test stream the other day, and I hopped on and I was testing this at that point. I was getting MOSFETs that were overheating. I was also getting, it would power off the main board as soon as you attempt to turn on the heat bed. That was at that time misdiagnosed as a... no, I'm not doing a Wiley. Oh, Ryan. It is on, Ryan. 10:07. Okay, yeah. So I guess what you really want to see though is the heat bed. Let's see. Heater. How does one do heaters through Heater, bed. Okay. Okay, so the bed is now heating to 60. Or maybe it's not. Unknown command. M140 S0. M140 S60 unknown command. Okay, well, that's interesting. This was working with a previous build of firmware. All right, let's turn it off. How does one turn this off? Bed off. Okay. Bed off is also an unknown command. All right, well, I stand corrected. Edge of Tech. Right. No, I was thinking of Never Let the Machines Win, who is, I guess his name I got wrong. Yes, Jim is Edge of Tech. Wasn't it Never Let the Machines Win also a Jim? Maybe not. Anyway, okay, so bed heating returns unknown command, and I guess I should try uh, um, nozzle heating just because I'm a masochist. Setting hot end temperature. Okay, that's working. Heater off. Okay, so bed heating returns unknown command. That's weird. Okay, so issues to be tackled today. It's Mike. Okay. Never let the machines win, Mike. Okay. Well, Mike, if you're listening, sorry about that. Okay, so problems to solve today. Dual Z, where only Z1 is active right now. Heat bed unknown command. I need to enable the serial port 0, whereas USB is serial port -1. This is going to be serial port 0. So I need to enable that. Dual Z, unknown command for heat bed heating, and software end stops. That is the order of the day. If anyone else wants to hop in, feel free to do so. I posted the link in the Canadian Maker Project Discord if people want it. I'm not so daring as to publish it in in the YouTube description, although I guess I could try that next time maybe. Okay, so back to our build. Add to stream. There we go. Okay. So first, we're going to disconnect our 24 volt. We're going to switch from 24 volt power to 5 volt power. As denoted by the little LED here. It's lit, and it also powers our touchscreen, which, as you can see, reports no printer attached, which basically just means it has no serial communication, no SPI communication, or no serial communication. I guess it's emulating USB serial. So yeah, that was the thing. It occurred to me that yes, you would get trolls, but at the same time, you could easily ignore them. They could just sit there in the green room and be all by their little lonesome. And along those same lines, I guess that's the reason that you would not have a shared green room among potential participants, so that you don't end up with lots of trolling in the green room. I don't know. I'm inclined. Maybe I should try it at some point, but yes, not today. Ryan, if you're or Ron, if you're inclined to grab the link and post it about, post it around, please do so, because I'm not sure where we should be publishing these things at this point. Not sure how I feel about the 3D printing nerds Discord, which seems to be exclusive and annoying in that sense. Right, so we are looking at for serial in configuration. All right, so serial port 2. First, we need to figure out where serial port 1 went. Secondary serial port. Here. Okay. We're going to define our secondary serial port as serial port 0. And Save and build, because I think that's all I need to do. So this is my first real dive into platform I/O. I had avoided it for some previous projects just because I didn't feel the need to burn a new IDE. There's nothing to this. There was one bit of irritation, though. There are platform specific toolchain elements that are required, which I guess makes sense. But the point is, when you install these libraries, it's not actually compiling the toolchain for you. So you don't get platform agnostic code to begin with. You end up needing to grab, there's platform init here. In order to get this to compile on my Mac, I ended up needing to add this line, platform packages. And apparently it's grabbing this set of packages, which I pulled off of a GitHub issue thread. I don't know quite how this is structured. I guess it's the standard platform I/O library. I don't know how bin tray relates to platform I/O, or if that's just a CDN. I'm not really sure. Anyway, adding platform packages allowed for the proper compiling of this firmware on a Mac. I'm not sure why that wouldn't be included, because I gather it's not actually I mean, this is a comment, presumably it's not actually parsing this. So the keyword platform packages should be universal, and I would think that it would have been in the init file from the word go. I don't know why that would be. Also not sure why framework is set to Arduino. And there might be another more correct frame entry there. It doesn't compile fast, that's for sure. The bootloader on this is interesting. I don't know the details of it, but essentially what goes on is when you connect the SKR board to a machine, it'll mount up the SD card on the board as a local drive. It's not clear to me whether the platform I/O system is pushing the resulting built firmware binary onto the drive as it's mounted locally, or it's pushing it through USB to the card, and the card is simply storing it on the drive. Because it threw an error when it couldn't find the drive when I had the thing disconnected, I assumed, and it was throwing an error about the drive and not about the board not being connected. that suggests to me that it actually is writing to the drive locally. The process then for getting the firmware to load into the system is to power it up at 24 volt and have it grab. I guess it just grabs the newest file by timestamp, or it could be looking for specifically for the file name firmware.bin and then stores it as the current firmware. It does not, however, maintain a backup of the previous firmware, which would be kind of a nice behavior. But it basically just renames the file on the SD card as an indicator of what's going on there. Not a fast compile, that's for sure. That was not the desired behavior. Right, okay, so more about the board. The secondary serial is here. You have power, reset, TX and RX data, and ground. So I guess that's basically USB plus a reset pin, I guess. I don't know if it'll do anything other than you have the USB serial profile, but it seems to be. Wayne, how's it going? We got past our smoke test with nothing burning up and a few things not working yet, but no serious damage so far. And right now we're just waiting for things to compile. If anyone else wants to hop in, the link is in Ron's Discord, because talking to myself is going to get old real fast. I'm not so worried about the cloud over the board, because I had clouds over these when I was testing them, and they're just fine. It's when the board melts down to a pile of molten slag that I get concerned. Maybe my bar is too low for that sort of thing. I don't know. All right, so we're done compiling. Okay, so there are a few things about Platform.io that are kind of weird. Okay, so it shows you the build, and then it hides the build panel, makes you go back and look at the build panel to see the actual message that it succeeded. All right, so it succeeded. And here we have the oddity of how this firmware is installed. It dumps it onto the drive that is exposed. This drive that is exposed from connecting the USB, and this being the current firmware, firmware.cur, this being the new firmware, firmware.bin, and essentially what goes on is we disconnect. Let's do this. Let us switch screens to look this way. Essentially what we end up doing is disconnecting our USB, switching to 24 volt power, connecting our 24 volt power. And yes, I know this is 12 volt 5 amp rated connector, but it makes life really easy when we're testing things. And so long as I'm not turning on the heat bed to over 100 Celsius, I shouldn't have a problem. So we power it on. We get no printer connected. And we wait. And hopefully it will decide that it likes our new secondary serial setup here. Now this is interesting. The default baud rate is set to 25,000, but it seems to be ignored in that we're connecting over USB at 11,5200, which is what you would expect. Now here we have settings that allow us to switch from 11,5200 to 25,000 and back. And so this actually does communicate at 25,000 or 250,000. That's a hell of a baud rate. So the question then becomes, and having switched this to 250,000, we no longer see the printer not connected message. Let's try some things. And it works. Cool. Heat. Let's look at heat. Heat bed. Well, The heat bed is listing 00, so I'm guessing the thermistor must be not happy. But let's try M140S10. Okay. Okay, that's not good. What the fuck? What the fuck? That must have been an effort to home, I guess. Okay, it's time to fix the dual Z setup here. That needs to work in a hurry. So I'm hearing you like ANET boards. I don't know that I like ANET boards. It's entertaining to squeeze every last bit of performance you possibly can out of an ANET board. Let's see. This was printed on an ANET, and this was printed on a Prusa. You tell me which one is better. ANET, Prusa. Dwayne, suggestions for second Z motor add-on for Ender 3. Wow, Thingiverse? I mean, don't you need uh, a uh, a carriage adjustment in order to make that work? Enders to begin with, though, didn't they? I don't know. I don't own an Ender 3, so maybe I don't have that right. Okay, so supposedly for dual Z to work, we for dual Z to work, we Okay, it's going to be in config advanced then. Dual steppers. Okay, dual end stops. So the problem appears to be that it's not running the second Z off this stepper. Could I make it run off the, I don't want to try that. I'd rather make it run off the second stepper. Okay. Z dual stepper drivers. Okay. Z triple stepper. That's interesting. Dual X carriage. So supposedly it's supposed to use extruder 1, which is this, automatically, but as the second Z when you enable this. But it's not clear whether, I mean, it's obviously not doing it. What is it I need to do to make it happen? Dual Z stepper drivers, okay. Use extra E drivers to drive a secondary motor for X, Y, and Z. Secondary motor. Dual end stops, no. So it just isn't working. What is the solution for just isn't working? Make sure it's plugged in. I guess one of the tests there would be to swap them. Yeah, let's do that. This is a tightly packed board. Wow. Guess you can see me. Who? Ron. When was that? How did I not have timestamps in private chat? Hey, Walter. Um, so I this is this is what has become of that machine that I brought to Earth last year. It's being crucified. All right. So if I'm right, and it's the driver and or firmware, probably the firmware, then I should now be moving this Z motor only. Okay. They're running backwards. At least that one's running backwards. That's good to know. So is that the underlying problem, that one of them is simply backwards? Could be. Robbie, no, this was no. The YouTube chat has timestamps. The private chat does not. Um, Dwayne, I take it tannerite is an explosive that I should be aware of. Um, this is where my nerdiness has failed me. All right, so X2 or Z2 needs to be reversed. Question is, same problem present with C1? I assume not. Come on, horrible connector. Crucified. I like that. I think that's going to go on a sign somewhere. Yes. Okay. Tannerite equals kablooey. Well, you know, it might go kablooey of its own accord. You never know with these things. All right. So spin it back up. Oh no. Plug it back in. Then spin it back up. Okay, both z-axes are reversed. Interesting. And we know also that it is not the motor or the cable, but the stepper that is not being engaged. So is it seated properly? Yes, it is seated properly. Is the plug seated correctly? Yes. Is the driver seated correctly? Yes. So what do I have to do if it is not? If it is not engaging dual Z correctly. Dual Z. This is going to be over here somewhere, right? Switching nozzle servo, interesting. E0, E1. There's something else. So my understanding was that you need to define E1 to enable this driver for E1. Or does that have the opposite effect of making it unavailable for Z as Z2? Hmm. I do need to define the driver type. I assume that's where that's done. But how do I get it to use? Let's see. Let us Google. Hey Ben, how's it going? All right, so what needs to happen here is we need to find hmm, a dual Z setup with SKR 1.3 2208s. Ah, so you use dual Z stepper driver and Z2 driver type rather than E1 driver type. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, we're disconnected there. We're switching back to 5 volt. Connecting our USB. Save and build. Yeah, I'm not good at talking to myself. So I guess I need to read chat more often or pop up messages. What can we do to fix this? We can invite trolls. That would work. So what goes on here? Oh, it just doesn't update very often, or it's just very slow in its build. I guess the build is just very slow. Okay. Um, so hopefully this will enable dual Z. And then I may need to reverse Z for some reason. Um, Stepper direction. Invert axes. Okay. Invert Z should be true. We'll do that next once we get this built. I have 7 people watching in silence. This is not great. So let's see what else. What else is worth talking about with this thing? I guess. Oh, so the parts again that I ended up designing on this are better uh, Y rod holders, which are based on Prusa's Y rod holders, but reduced in height, and their version 4 rod holders, which have a better snap fit. And I punched a hole in the X idler so that I could push my rods through it because um, they wouldn't fit otherwise. And I didn't feel like buying new rods. Um, And there was something else. What the hell was it? There was a third and more significant item. Oh, the Y motor mount, which is also based vaguely on Prusa's Y motor mount. But actually, I think the only thing I had to do there was increase the size of the holes. The positioning of the holes for the Prusa Y motor mount are at exactly the correct width for T-slot extrusions, interestingly. But they're like M3, they're meant for M3 screws, whereas you need like M4 or 5, M5 to me anyway, um, to get it to seat properly. But those on GitHub at some point, so they're going to be up on GitHub along with the firmware config when I get it dialed in, and I'll put the things up on Thingiverse as well. But come on, build. You know you want to make it through this. It is not a fast build. We're into 4 minutes into this build now. Wow, that's kind of horrendous. I guess that's what happens when you go from 8 to 32-bit. But again, I'm very unimpressed with Platform IO in that it doesn't compile the toolchain for you. And bootstrap the toolchain for you. Certainly it needs a compiler to start with, but there should be a version-specific or platform-specific compiler that ships with these things from which you can then bootstrap whatever it is that you need. But that's my mentality from the Gen 2 Linux days, where you compile the entire you compile the kernel and every software package you want to install. Gen 2 is kind of awesome. I'm not even sure if it's still around anymore. Gen 2 Linux is so cool. Right, Walter? It's basically the antithesis of Microsoft and .NET. So. Hey, Don, how's it going? I am slowly but surely making my way towards a working printer. I'm actually rather concerned about this heat bed issue. I don't know if the thermistors work when this thing is in 5-volt. No, let's see. It's not going to let me heat. Oh, the thermistor is working. That's the nozzle thermistor. No, the bed thermistor is dead. Why would the bed thermistor be dead? Huh. Well, maybe this goes back. It was looking okay initially. Unless the cabling is too tight here. Yeah, that could be it. Irritating. Very, very irritating. I actually have a CNC hiding over beyond this pile of stuff behind me. Um, it's got a woodpecker board on it right now, which is one of those integrated CNC, Arduino-ish CNC things with sort of semi-closed firmware, I guess. I mean, it's Gerbil based, but I don't know if the code is really out there. It might be fun to migrate that over to an Arduino and a real shield. How did you get them for a buck? How many did you have to buy to get them for $1.75 each? And what percentage of them are in working order? Okay, looks like our build is complete. I don't know why this thing is not updating quite as reasonably as I'd hope. All right, build is complete, and build is successful. And okay, so this should give us dual Z. Unplug USB. Switch back to 24 volt. Plug in the 24 volt. Power it all on. Watch things not go up in smoke. Sounds horrible, but they're both moving. They just need to be inverted. Okay, so Z needs to be inverted. Y negative. Y, let's see. That's positive. Y needs to be inverted. And X needs to be inverted. They're all backwards. Okay. Next. So X, Y, and Z need to be inverted rather than dicking around with the wiring, because I am not a dicking around with the wiring kind of guy. Wow. That was a pretty good find. Yeah, hit me up on Twitter, or I'll find you in Discord or something. But I could use a set of those, I suppose. And maybe two of the LCDs. because I'm not sure how I feel about this serial touchscreen arrangement. It's not as happy making as I would like it to be. Okay, so we need to invert all axes. So let's do that next. Back to 5 volt. We'll unplug the 12 volt. Plug in the USB. Oh, and then we need to figure out end stops. And the other thing we need to figure out is the Z sensor. Now, the one thing I didn't understand in any of the videos or tutorials that I've seen related to the SKR 1.3 is, do I need to wire the end stops off of the some pins on the drivers, or is that also in the traces on here? Is there a jumper that I can just set to make that work? I don't think there's a jumper. So, I mean, it's certainly conceivable that the end stop headers and end stop control pins on drivers are wired together rather than parallel or something, or series, or whatever the hell it is. It would be parallel, wouldn't it? Okay, so now we quietly wait for this build to work. Dwayne, which touchscreen did you say it was? Because I was thinking of the 12864s. Come on, build. Build for Colin. Do not be slow. Maybe this tells me I need to go get myself a new computer. I've been trying to come up with an excuse to buy a good gaming rig. The fact that I can't compile this with reasonable speeds is certainly an argument in favor of that. It'd be nice to have that controller, at least on here, just as a diagnostic tool. Because this interface, there's no guarantee that this is going to render errors with any reliability. The firmware on here, and it does run its own firmware, is rather basic, from what I can tell. So for anyone else interested, here is that set of messages. Dwayne has a bunch of LCDs and CNC shields. Available, so hit them up if you need any of them, and I will probably be doing the same. All right, come on, build. Where are we? Hmm. Aha. Success. All right. Unplug the USB. Switch to 24 volt. Plug in the 24 volt and turn it on. God, that sounds horrible. It's the worst sounding printer in history. But hey, we don't hear the steppers. Oh, wow. Uh, I'm going to need to work on the stepping here. Okay. Um, let's see if our end stop is being tripped. Let us look at front or face. That didn't work. All right, Pronner face. Oh, it would help if I have the USB connected. Steppers are looking good. Now, what is it? 119. Triggered, open. Okay, excellent. I'm sort of vague on how to do the software and stop stuff. But we shall see. Let us use their Git interface and see what. Stage all. Why did it not stage all? Okay, I don't like their Git interface. We shall do this on the command line. All right. Oh, The acceleration is way too high. Are you talking about the x-axis squeaking? I assumed it was just bad bearings. I mean, there are probably lots of problems with it. Also, it doesn't appear to be square. But well, that's not good. This is what happens when you manage these things on an unreliable NAS. This is what I've seen recently with my what's the name of the outfit that produces this NAS? QNAP. This thing has been quite unreliable and randomly will decide that it doesn't like doing things with Git repositories, which is significantly problematic. This is not something I've ever seen with Git, where it'll refresh the index in weird ways. I've never seen it have to do that except when storing Git repositories on this NAS. Not so impressive. If they run too fast, they sound like that. Okay. I shall slow them down. Well, that is particularly irritating. All right. So okay, so the files I need to copy over are Oops. All right, let's go back and look at. All right. Close the welcome screen. Let's build this thing just to make sure it's buildable. Why is it not buildable? What have I forgotten? So this can't be built because I'm not declared a pin. I haven't made changes. There is nothing to change here. All right, we're going to do something silly here. Assume that it wasn't mounting the drive correctly because it wasn't on 5-volt USB. Why it would throw a pins file error on that basis, I don't know. Well, this is not reassuring. Well, this is, I grabbed the nightly Marlin bug fix thing here. So volumes home. Z stepper align. Okay. Well, let's see if they added something to a config in here somewhere that that's what I should have done. All right. I know this gets very boring very fast. What did you miss? You missed my discovery that my NAS is not allowing proper file rights for Git indexes for some reason. So I need to move the Git working directory onto a local file system. I did this incorrectly in that I have uh, done a shit job of of syncing things because I thought I was going to do this the convenient way. Okay, so what we're doing so we're going to do it again. I'm making things way harder than they need to be. I'm doing things step by step, but all I'm trying to do here is maintain a log of the changes. No, the problem I ran into was that I was working on a file system that wasn't quite as reliable as I would have hoped. Hmm. Adam doesn't want to quit. That's not good. Okay. I'll start up Adam again. Okay. So we should be able to build without errors at this point. God damn it. Now I'm getting annoyed. All right, so how am I making this harder than it needs to be? This needs to actually build, and it's not building. What the hell? And yet if I build it off the project over here, a build here. It apparently succeeds. Unless I can't find the upload disk. And that works. Well, I just want to have a repository of the changes that I made. No, the problem is that Git does weird things with uh, file handles, and my network storage doesn't seem to like that very much. Can't write index file. Fuck. All right. Sensitive pins. E1 NS2 pin. Why did this just randomly start failing? There are no changes to untracked files. The only files changed were those 3. Why can I not reproduce an unreproducible build is a very bad thing. Let's see if we can move files reliably. Or if I completely screwed myself over in this effort. All right, well, this is exceedingly boring for people to be watching. And it's almost 12:30. So before I get even further annoyed with my inability to manage get working directories, I think I'm going to call it a day here. Thanks for hanging out. We will pick this up another day once I get these builds to be just that little bit more reliable. Have a good one, guys.